questions, and I'm going to turn it over to the audience. And I'm going to begin with asking Stephanie. I know at the beginning, Melissa was sort of saying that you wrote this sort of in response to her, wanting to show your relationship, and not your relationship specifically, but lesbian relationship on the big screen. Were there other objectives that you had when you set out to write this film?
I think that in terms of the sex, one of my objectives was to be as antagonistic as possible. And by that I mean not to shy away from going beyond the kind of heavy petting and making out in relationships. And I don't know, I think that was, I mean antagonistic in a good way. I know that sounds good. But just to, and to bring the film to a big audience and in the, like a commercial film, and to have a certain aesthetic that it can be able to be shown all over our city. And, you know, as I'm sure you've seen our outdoor campaign, that was also something that I hope the way that would happen for this movie, because I think queer people deserve to see posters of two women while they ride the TTC.
Erika, when you first read the script, you know, you're a professional model, and this was a film coming out of Canada, queer film. What was it that hooked you about the film?
I think the first thing that I sort of, what captured me was like an all-female crew, and also it kind of felt dangerous in a way, and I always look for that when I do like work in general. And yeah, I think like just meeting, you know, the producer and the writer and the director, and also like doing the chemistry with Natalie was like kind of what drew me to do it. And I also wanted to take my career to another level, and I think I couldn't have done it with another script than this movie.
Dangerous is an interesting word, because I've always, since I first saw the film, bold is the word that comes to mind. And in the last Q&A that we had, there was a hot button question about strap-ons, and you know, and I think it's interesting because it's the first time that I think I've sat around a table with drinks talking about strap-ons and sex in that way after seeing a film. So you know, in that regard, dangerous is like an interesting word.
Yeah.
And Natalie, for you, this was the first time I think that you were, you know, doing sex scenes with a woman, and it was very, there was lots of spark, and
You liked it.
and I'm wondering how that experience changed your perspective, whether it's your sexuality, or if it's just, you know, what the takeaway is from being a part of a project like this.
That's a loaded question. Yeah, it changed. I mean, this whole experience from being cast to finishing the filming completely changed me. I changed relationships. It shifted a lot within myself. In terms of my sexuality, I think it just answered a lot of questions, made things more clear for myself.
Did you find that being like that vulnerable on camera changed you as like an actor, or even just as an individual?
Yeah, it definitely changed me as an actor in the sense that I felt a lot more confident and more comfortable going into auditions or working on projects, just holding space. But yeah, I mean, I could write a book about how this film has changed me. So
yeah,
that's great.
Do it.
Really, just
I know that
you liked it.
And we were talking about how, Erika, you were drawn to it because there's a female crew behind it, and Melissa, I think you began having a female crew because you knew there was a lot of sex scenes and you wanted the actors to be comfortable? And then what was the decision to kind of keep going in that direction?
It was sort of, there were two things in mind when Stephanie and I, when we started talking about the project, we were thinking at the beginning, we always thought we would have a woman DOP, because we were talking about, you know, having, like, shooting this from a woman's perspective and maintaining that female gaze, and we just thought it seemed like the natural thing to do, and also for the comfort of the two actors. And then that sort of, it expanded from there. So if you're having a woman DOP, then we obviously want to have a woman sound operator, boom operator, and then your first AD, and then it sort of was like, okay, actually we should do an all-women floor crew, and then we started talking about the underrepresentation of women in Hollywood, and, you know, women in Hollywood, I guess I shouldn't keep saying Hollywood, but women in the business, and the film and television business, and we just thought, well, why don't we just try it and see if we can go from there. That's what happened, and it was an incredible experience, so highly recommended.
Do we have any questions from the audience out here? Yes?
I was at TIFF to see this movie, and I'm back here tonight. Absolutely fabulous. Thank you.
Yay.
The 2 stars after the show, and I said I'd see you on February 10th, so here I am.
Thank you.
When you were at TIFF, you did the red carpet and all that. What is the experience from there to here like? Like the anticipation of relaunching it, basically. Like you've gone through now, what? This is your 3rd premiere because you had one at 7. Then you had TIFF, you had 2 or 3 at TIFF. Like, what's the experience like in the anticipation of going from the film festival to now to a regular theater?
Thank you for your comment, and thank you for your question. I think nobody has asked that, by the way. That's a very, very good question. I feel like every time we do something else, we're sort of, it's its own thing. And I feel like, for me anyway, every single time we do something else, I get the same feeling, like the nervous jitters and the excitement. Obviously TIFF was like a huge, huge thing, and we've played a lot of festivals around the world, so every experience is unique and every experience is different. For me, the theatrical release of the film is such an overwhelming experience. I worked in theatrical distribution at Alliance Films, that's where I started in the business, so sort of bring it back around and see, you know, our own film on transit shelters and murals and TV spots and advertising, like for me that's an incredible experience. It's like what Stephanie said about seeing a queer film treated like a mainstream release, to me is amazing. It doesn't happen very often, as you probably know. And then I think for me, these are the true film goers. This is our audience. So, you know, it's one thing, like film festival audiences are amazing too, but the actual audience, the people that go out and buy tickets, that come out on a snowy night to see the film, to me that is like the heart and soul of the film. So, I don't know.
I think it's also a difference of who occupies that space at film festivals and who occupies the space that stays at
I know.
Right, so I don't necessarily know how much of the space, how much of TIFF space is being dedicated to us.
I would actually, this particular film, I would actually disagree because sitting in almost the same theater, it's just a different age demographic.
Right. Yeah.
That this crowd is much, much younger, and the TIFF people,
Much older.
yeah, that's the difference.
Probably ticket price.
Thank you.
I think it was all 99% lesbian anyway, so.
Right there. Yeah.
You guys were watching the film while we were, right? Same time?
Sort of.
I saw some of it at the beginning. I sort of left halfway.
Okay, I was curious, what are your reactions to the audience reaction? Because there was a lot of laughing and responses, so what did you?
Yeah. I have a hard time staying in my body when I watch with audiences. I just can't get used to it. And I'm watching you, I'm not really watching them. So I'm very conscious and sensitive to your reactions for sure.
And what I like is that you all laugh at the parts that we laugh at. And, you know, sometimes when
It's like watching a movie with your best friend.
yeah, exactly. It's like watching a movie with all your best friends who get the same jokes. That's what feels really good about it. And I know that sometimes when we were working on certain elements of the script, and some people might read it and say, well, that's not really funny, and then you bunch laugh, so we're like, okay, they got it. Really, it's fun. It's a good experience.
Yes, right there.
So I noticed that Dallas also grew up in
was adapted to the script?
Well, she was supposed to be Italian, but I don't really live. Right?
Dallas Valente became
Yeah.
Dallas.
They're like, yeah, you're great, but yeah, but then you just look really Swedish.
Yeah.
Right here in the front.
Cool. So first of all, I'd like to thank you because I feel like this is one of the first or few movies that a lesbian sex story or per se, it's actually portrayed for what it is. It's not exaggerated. It's not put in a context for the male gaze. So thank you for that. It was very natural. And two questions, one for the crew and one for the actresses. Crew, when you guys were thinking about the sex scenes, were you wanting them to shoot them in certain ways? What process did you go so that it was portrayed in the most honest way? And for the actresses, what process did you guys go through in order to feel comfortable with each other and also comfortable with being so intimate and so vulnerable in front of the crew?
Why don't you go first?
Well, we were really isolated for probably like a month, at least a couple weeks leading up to when we started shooting, and so we were really diving into those characters. And when we were shooting those intimate scenes, it was a very closed set. There was only the director, the cinematographer, and I think that was it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Sound, but not really. She's behind the curtain.
Yeah. And just Erika and I, and even we would eat our lunch in the bed. Crying. So we were really in a bubble for the entire time that we were shooting, which really allowed us, it was a special experience because it allowed us to just kind of maintain this state that the characters were in. Yeah.
You said everything. Maybe you did. Yeah.
To expand on what Natalie said, the two of them had we sort of set it up so that they had a lot of privacy and a lot of intimacy on set. So, but when we shot at, for instance, Dallas's loft, that was in Toronto, just, what's the street called? Queen and River. And we occupied the loft across the hall, so all the crew and everybody, we were set up over there, and they were in Dallas's loft. So they stayed there together. They really kind of cocooned with each other, and the crew gave them a lot of privacy. And April, our director, she did a wonderful job of kind of talking with them and kind of keeping the set really peaceful and really calm. So that we could and we also shot the film, for the most part, we shot it sequentially so that they could kind of feel the relationship blossoming and growing and they got closer and closer, like in the laneway when they kiss at the bar, but when they kiss in the laneway that night, that was the first time they had kissed, so they resisted, they didn't kiss when they were rehearsing or doing any of that stuff together, that they kind of let that chemistry build, and that's sort of, we felt like the sparks kind of flew a lot because of that. And then Stephanie, do you want to talk about sort of when you were writing? Do you want to talk about why?
I would just say that in terms of remaining, the question was about honesty and authenticity in the experience. I think I put myself inside the room with the characters, with their feeling, and never outside. So it was like I was within their space, not watching and moving them around with my pen.
And when you were actually shooting for the DOP and the director, while they were having the scene, did you find yourself that you just had to go with the flow as they were going, not really direct them, just catch the moment as?
I mean, yeah, I guess it's a bit more. Do you want to answer that? It's a bit, yeah, Bacon.
We had things loosely blocked and had an idea of what it would be, but then a lot of it was us going, like they would just let us go. We would have a loose idea and then we would just go. And sometimes April, they would just keep the camera running and April would redirect us to do this or go back. And it was very organic the way it happened, but there was like a loose blueprint.
So they're going to come in, they're going to go to the fridge,
Or recreating
recreate that, and then at a certain point you're going to go upstairs, just the architecture, I guess, of the movement. Yeah.
It's also beautiful.
When I asked Stephanie about the same question, she said that often in films what we see is that a couple hooks up and then all of a sudden you get this montage of like cycling and ice creams and like being cutesy and you don't get the real fucking, right? So it's like the feeling of this is you really get that extended feel of the lust of the first few days of a relationship. I think we have to wrap because there's a party. So I'll let Mel tell you about that.
So I think a lot of you have already got tickets through wonderful and incredible Chantal from Cream. Thank you, Chantal, for all of your hard work for putting this celebration together. So we're going to have our official after party tonight at the Hard Rock, which is just across Dundas Square. So hopefully most of you have tickets. If you don't, you can get them at the door. Okay? Is that good?
Thanks, everybody.